Hi everyone. In this video, we are going to look at a Power Automate Cloud Flow that I recently completed for a client. This Cloud Flow automates some onboarding tasks that the client has for new employees. And these new employees are certain employees that will belong to a particular teams in Microsoft Teams. And we're going to walk through each step of this flow and what it does. This is not a tutorial on how to set up the flow, but rather it's just to give you some ideas of what went into building this flow and how a flow like this, these actions that make up this flow could be implemented in your own environment and for your own business. Now, this flow is triggered by a item being added to a SharePoint list. So we have a SharePoint list. The SharePoint list looks like this. It's called an employee database. And it's a list that tracks new employees for a particular area of the business. And it's just collecting very basic information. For example, the employee name, their status. Are they an active employee or are they no longer with the company? We have a column for a role, and this column here can contain multiple roles. And then we have another column for secondary role. And we also have the email, and then we have a link to the person's planner. And then we've got some IDs here for the plan ID and the group ID. And then we've got a title column that we're not currently using. But this is the basics here. And this is just a test list that I have. The actual employee database is located elsewhere. But that's what this first action is, which is our trigger. And it's going to be when someone goes here, they add a new item, which is basically meaning adding a new employee to this list. That's going to set in motion the actions, the onboarding actions of our flow. So they're going to fill in the basic information here. Now they do not need to fill in the plan ID or group ID because that's going to happen automatically. And at this time, we're not collecting the planner URL, which is located there. But with a name, a status, and an email, that's enough to trigger the flow. So once that happens, then we've got these actions here. Now I'll go to the primary action. It's not going to cover every single action that's happening because there's a lot of details there's a lot of actions that are just getting information, such as we're getting the person's profile based on the email from the SharePoint list. So the email column. And then our first thing is that we are adding that person as a member of the team that they belong to, which in this case is a team called the Frontline team. And once they're added as a member, which is a necessary step because the next step here is that a channel is being created, a private channel is being created for that person. And in order for them to have that private channel, they also need to be a member of the team. So they're added as a member of the team. And then the next step is this team's Microsoft Graph HTTP request, creating the private channel. And we're also indicating in the body of this request that this person is going to be set as the member of the channel. Now, the user here is the user that is from this action of get my profile, because the automate account that we're using to create the cloud flows, that person also is set as owners on the channels, and they're going to be the owner of the private channel as well. Now, if we jump up here, we see that we have these actions that I've placed under scopes because all the actions pertain to the same goal, which are the same ultimate goal action that I've renamed the scope to. So you can see the scope is get team owners, and all of the actions under this involve getting the team owners. Now we're getting the team owners because we want to then make those team owners the owners of that private channel that gets created. And the owners are people such as the company owner and some admin people who also need to have access to that private channel. Not everybody needs to be in there. We're making it private because you don't want we're setting certain levels, permission levels, right? So all of these actions here are essentially the HTTP calls to get to Azure to get the team owners, because there's no native action in Power Automate that allows you to get these team owners. So we call to Azure, we created an Azure app, and this calls to that app. It gets the access token, it does some parsing actions, and then it gets the team owners that belong to the team that the private channel is part of. Now, once we get those team owners, then the next one is a set team owners as private channel owners. So that's what's happening here. This is yet another Azure app. So it's another call to get the access token and to add the owners to that channel. So that's what each of these actions is working towards here. After that, we've added another scope of actions, which is to create the planner plan. So we're creating a planner plan for the individual that's been added to the list. So again, it's another Azure app that we've added to be able to do this, because there's no native action to create a planner plan in Power Automate, but we can do it with a call to Azure. And so we're creating a planner plan for that new employee. After that, we are going to create the planner plan buckets. Now, this scope is not a HTTP call. These are individual actions, and there's 7 buckets that need to be added to that person's planner, and they all will contain tasks relating to a certain area of the business, such as a daily report will be a bucket where there'll be daily reports tasks created inside that bucket. So we have 7 of those that are added to that person's planner. And then lastly, we have a folder in SharePoint that's getting created in that person's SharePoint. And then the last thing is we have 2 fields, or 2 columns, excuse me, in the list. If we go back here, which is plan ID and group ID, and those columns are getting populated with the ID of the plan ID of the newly created planner and the group ID of the newly created team. Now, excuse me, the newly created team's channel. Now, those are crucial to be passed back here because they're going to be used in other flows. So we retain those IDs here, and then we can easily pull the data from this list based on the user and the user information in like the status and role fields, for example. And then we're able to then we're able to use those IDs as a means to connect to that user's appropriate plan and group. Now, all of the actions you saw in between here, we have, parse JSON actions that allows to extract certain things. So for example, this is parsing the planner plan to get the planner plan ID that you see here. And that's how we're able to pass that plan ID into our update item, which is updating our SharePoint list. And then you have other things like composing first name, last name, and that's an expression, which is concatenating the employee's first name and their last name. And we're using that to create the value of their first last name to be able to access their site address, which you see here, that is getting created by that channel, right? Teams, when you create a new channel in Teams, it creates a SharePoint site for that person. So ultimately we achieving a number of steps that for onboarding that would otherwise be just done manually by going into each separate system, going into Teams, and then going into SharePoint, and then going into Planner. But we have all those steps automated through this by that one trigger that we have. So I hope that you found this video useful. And if you need to implement something like this in your business, please let me know. Reach out to me through my email that you can find in my channel description, and or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Thanks everyone for watching, and as always, we'll see you in that next video. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.